Meeting the Airport Commission of March 16, 2011 to order. May we have a roll call?
Kirk Martin.
Here.
Bruce Miller.
Here.
John Clark.
Here.
Chris Colbert.
Here. Oh, excuse me. I said Gilbert. My apologies.
William Gilbert.
Here.
Patricia Griffin. Scott Tracy.
Here. We have public comment at the beginning of the meeting. Any member of the public may address the Airport Commission on any subject matter within the jurisdiction of the Airport Commission that is not on the Commissioner's agenda. Total time for public comment is 15 minutes. If you wish to address the Commission under this item, please complete and deliver the slip. Do we have any speaker slips this evening?
Not this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Notices that the Lease Review Subcommittee meeting scheduled for Thursday, March 3rd was canceled. The Ordinance Subcommittee met on Tuesday, March 8th at 10:30 in the Airport Administration Building, easy for me to say. That the March 11th at 5 p.m. the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda for the bulletin board, and also the Budget Subcommittee meeting of February 25th. And you have a statement about that?
Just that it occurred at 2 p.m. in the Airport Administration Conference Room, and we just neglected to put it on the notices.
Thank you for that. The minutes from the last meeting, is there a motion to waive the reading?
Second.
All those in favor of waiving the reading? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are waived.
Are we going to accept the minutes?
We accept the minutes as stated. Yes, thank you. Rushing my way here through it. The consent calendar. We have lease agreements as posted. Are there any questions on the lease agreements? Is there a motion to approve the lease agreements as stated?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as stated.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent calendar as stated?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? The consent calendar is approved. Liaison reports. Mr. Hotchkiss, if you please, our liaison.
If you're counting on me to make this long, it's going to be short. I have to be out of here in about 15 minutes. I thank you for letting me come. It's a pleasure and an honor to be liaison. And so I'm really an open door and a big ear for you. So you have a difficult job because these folks do such a good job that you're going to get up there and you're going to be tempted just to give a rubber stamp. So that's fine because I think the numbers tonight reflected in some of the suggested contracts show what a good job is being done here. And it's certainly encouraging in a city that's strapped for cash to see these kind of numbers from the rental car company. So congratulations to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hotchkiss. Mr. Aceves.
Good evening, Chair Martin and Commissioners. It's always a pleasure being here. Don't have a lot, just one highlight from our council meetings, actually a couple now, because we did a special meeting to approve a bond measure, which was sold, and we will be starting construction with San Jose Creek sometime this year. And as you know, when you do a creek, you have to hope that it doesn't rain when you want to do the construction, or you wait. So we're looking at about a 2-year construction cycle. At the end of the construction, FEMA will issue a new map, which will hopefully show that the whole town is no longer in the floodplain. And we can start with some some real revitalization right outside your window here. So thank you again and for offering me the opportunity to speak before you.
Also, Mr. Aceves says, once that creek is completed, if you need help planning a gala reopening, I know some people that can help you. We have a subcommittee that may be able to assist you.
Well, I'm looking forward to yours, and we could do that because this community's waited such a long time for it that we will have a celebration. But, great idea.
Thank you very much for the report, sir. And the administrative reports.
Okay, our first item is our report on our airport marketing program. And some meetings ago, commissioners had expressed an interest in being caught up to date on what our marketing program consists of. And our marketing coordinator, Terry Gibson, is here tonight to fill you in. And she's really our expert on it. So if you have any questions, I'm sure she'll be able to answer.
Thank you. We're just going to give you a little bit of background information to begin with. This is the Airport Marketing and Communications Program has several aspects to it, but we're just going to concentrate on advertising and sponsorship activities. In terms of background, the first marketing plan, Karen wrote that marketing plan in 1992. And at that time, we had approximately 600,000 passengers going in and out of the airport. And at the peak, we had close to 850,000. That was a 30% increase over that year. And by 1996, that was the launch of our first website. We'd increased it by 20%. So currently, we have 2.5 administrative positions, myself, Lynn Houston, who's our marketing specialist, and Tim Lawton, who is our airport community education liaison. Our funding for the program is approximately 4% of the entire airport budget, but we make a huge impact based on that amount of money. I'm sure you see all of our advertising around town. When we first started the program, most of the airline bookings were taking place through the travel agents and through calling the airlines directly. But right now, most people do their own booking online, which has changed the fabric of how we have to do our marketing plans. The background for the Marketing and Communications Division, we have air service development, advertising and sponsorship activities, which we'll talk about tonight, public information, media relations, and aviation education. What we do is we create a marketing plan that has different strategies to try and reach our primary demographic, which is across almost split half and half between male and female. They range in age 34 to 54. That's our primary target. They're usually a Santa Barbara County resident. That's from Santa Maria to Carpinteria. 78% are flying domestically and 22% are flying internationally. There's a lot of destinations out of Santa Barbara that are one-stop worldwide. And they book their own flights online. So to create awareness of our commercial airline service, we have our comprehensive advertising venues. We partner with tourism industry councils in town. Our website activity, which is huge, and social media is something that we've just gotten into within the last 18 months. It depends what's happening at the time in terms of air service as to what we concentrate on and put the emphasis. And last year, it was Frontier Airlines, which was a new name for this part of the country, and they really needed a big launch in order to get their name well known. Hopefully you've seen that around town. The year before that, it was Horizon Air to Sacramento, and we concentrated quite a bit of our budget on the terminal construction and getting public awareness out. And previous to that, there was Allegiant Service and American Service. We've lost both of these services, but we're going to get Dallas back. We do have print ads. We have bus boards, newspapers, magazines. It's usually lifestyle magazines for Santa Barbara, like Montecito Magazine, Casa Magazine, Seasons, Santa Barbara Magazine. These are all read by locals as well as visitors. We do the city water bill inserts that reaches 25,000 local families in town or residences, and the cultural programs that are associated with our sponsorships. Of all of these things, in terms of print, far and away is the bus boards. If it's on the bus boards, people know about it. We also do local radio advertising. We try to maximize these and do them all at the same time so that we get the largest impact possible. Online promotions, we have flysba.com, which is huge. Without our website, I'm not sure what we'd do. At least our front desk personnel do not have to answer so many questions because we send them directly to the website. We have a presence on the News Hawk, which is local news. The City of Santa Barbara, they allow us to post on their homepage, and then we do co-op advertising with the Conference and Visitors Bureau. Occasionally we do television programming on local news and on the cable channels, but most of our presence is on Channel 18 Government Access. And they've been doing quite a few films for us. Those films are shown on Inside Santa Barbara as well as on our hold room screens at the terminal. So our industry partners are primarily the Conference and Visitors Bureau, the Santa Barbara Chamber, and the Goleta Chamber. Each one of these businesses and or organization has their own annual publications. We participate in all of those, as well as in their festivals and special events. For the website, the highlights are our flight schedule, which this week I'm being told is going to go to be a real-time flight schedule, which means it will show what's happening with the airlines at the time. If there's a cancellation or a delay, if it's on time, whatever, you'll be able to look it up on the website as well as somewhere else. We'll get into that later. We have rotating display ads. We have what's new, and that's our news releases. Parking information, that's a big one with maps. They download the maps. That's the number 3 in terms of page views. We have the kayak flight booking engine, which keeps people on our page and they can book a flight right from our website. And then we have airline information and the links to those airline pages, and that's the number 2 web view or page view for the website. What we've gotten into most recently, and we've been on Twitter for quite a while in terms of social media. We started that, actually Hazel initiated that when she needed to communicate with our tenants in a quick way. So that got us launched, and then we did some crisis communications on there at some point, and mostly we're doing information about all of our programs that have to do with the airport. And we have a Santa Barbara City College intern who's a whiz at social media and keeps us up to date in what we're supposed to be doing in order to keep the biggest presence possible. We just she's updated our Facebook page, and we'll be using Facebook a lot to inform the public about our grand opening events that are coming up this summer. We've got YouTube. That's where Government Access posts their videos for us on the terminal project on our website. And here's where Tracy came in terms of being instrumental. He got us an app. So we are actually one of the first airports in the country to have an app, version 1.0. And then Lynn Houston, our marketing specialist, has made sure that we look professional with Exact Target software. It's something that the Conference and Visitors Bureau uses as well. But we'll be using that for the grand openings to help inform people about what's going on and have a professional presence that has links to other information. So for the app, we really want to boast about that. It's big. Not only is it available on Android, but just this week became available on iPad, iPhone, and iPod. It has the live schedule, and what we've received in terms of feedback is everybody is pleased as punch, especially the business traveler. We have airport parking information, airline information. You can link directly to the airlines. We have the car rental information, those on and off airport. And then we have a section for feedback. And so far, all the feedback, like I said, has been positive. We participate in local community festivals as a sponsor. Iman Anari, last year we had I would say probably the most popular drawing there was the Da Vinci and his flying machine. And I think that's going to be the poster this year for the festival because it was so incredibly popular. We are the official airport of UCSB Athletics. We have been for the past couple of years. We have a presence on their stadium, their new stadium, Harder Stadium scoreboard, as well as we sponsor basketball and soccer games. And it was very fortunate this year because of the soccer cup, the College Cup Nationals were held here in Santa Barbara, so we got great exposure there. We've been a sponsor of the Lemon Festival ever since its inception, which I don't know how long that's been, but it's been at least a decade and a half. Here we have the Postcards of Travel Youth Mural. I'm not sure if you've seen it out at the terminal, but it's actually gorgeous. This is something that Lynn Houston spearheaded with at-risk youth and a local artist to bring a special presence to the airport and make people feel more welcome, especially during construction. I think they did an absolutely beautiful job, and we got a lot of press out of this. It's sort of the launch of our new public art program, and it gave us a good push into the foyer, which Karen has been working so hard on. And this year we're going to participate for the third time in Butterflies Alive. It's a special exhibit at the Santa Barbara Natural History Museum. It's very popular, and it does have to do with aviation. It's just not planes, it's butterflies. And so, just in summary, we do cover a lot of different things. Air service, when we go to speak with the airlines, they are very interested in what type of marketing program we have. We have a good reputation out there, and I believe that speaks volumes. It really helps us out when we're speaking to the airline executives wanting to know, once they're here, if they will receive a good reception and be able to have enough presence. And then we do aviation education all the way from tours to classroom visits for aviation careers. And so also our plans, we spend a lot of time thinking about what we're going to be doing each year, and we give the most impact with a comprehensive approach. And in that picture is just some of the artists, the youth artists that work on the mural, and in the center there in the back is Carlos Cellular, who was a local artist who spent many, many hours with them, and he's really a saint, actually. Did a great job. So thank you.
I have two questions. We've really nurtured and followed through with our relationship and certainly our liaison with Goleta. I noticed that we are on the Santa Barbara City website. Have we discussed being on Goleta's? Would that be something, Mr. Aceves, that you could help us with? Thank you, sir. And I also noticed that we are the official airport of UCSB Athletics, and I was curious, was that a close race with another airport? Not to diminish, I am proud that we are.
Yes, you would have to call me on that, wouldn't you? It is an obvious choice.
It was nip and tuck with San Ynez.
Thank you for the report very much. It's impressive.
Sir? I noticed we talk about education for youth. Do we have anything for adults? The reason I'm suggesting, do we have some sort of a traveling show that we can put on for, maybe I missed it, but put on for various organizations within the city, Goleta and so forth?
Yes, I and Hazel and Tracy probably give a dozen or more presentations to community groups each year, and have been for the last 25 or so years. And now with the terminal, of course, we have a lot of interest in that. We've been giving a lot of hard hat tours and presentations connected with those tours. So, in fact, tomorrow, the grand jury will be holding their meeting in our conference room, and Hazel and Tracy will be making a presentation and then taking them on a tour of the terminal later in the afternoon. So we do a lot of presentations to adult groups.
Well, I guess I was more concerned about whether we're presenting Why Fly from Santa Barbara. You know, some of these treasured pictures from down in L.A. of everybody screaming and hollering and carrying on, rather than the orderly passage of friendly and service and so forth here at Santa Barbara.
Yeah, we, during some of our presentations, obviously depends on the group and what their interests are, but we do talk about air service, and people generally have a lot of questions. Also in our advertising and marketing that Terry and Lynn do, and our website, we have we still have the calculator on there, don't we? Yes. The flight calculator that shows you how much of a financial benefit it is to fly out of Santa Barbara as opposed to driving to Los Angeles airports. So we do try and incorporate as much of that in all of our marketing as possible.
I assume that for the opening of the new terminal, you got a big whoopee plan for just why fly, huh?
Yep, definitely.
Also, Bill, the other thing that we do, which Tracy is a member of the Board of Directors for the Goleta Chamber, and I am a member of the Board of Directors for the Conference and Business Bureau. So there's a lot of interaction that we have with local business leaders and educating them about what goes on at Santa Barbara Airport. And in addition to that, there's on our tours, which there are thousands of kids who go through our tour program each year. They are brought by parents and by escorts. Those escorts learn just as much on the tours as the kids, and they ask probably more questions than the kids do. So believe it or not, we're reaching them in many different ways. That we have to do it based on our budget, and so we maximize it to the greatest extent possible. And Karen worked for years and years at the Goleta Chamber as well. And in terms of people understanding the traffic situation between Santa Barbara and LAX, the travel, they will not do it unless they absolutely have to. The business traveler does not want to get beat up in that arena. They know that if they can fly to Santa Barbara, they will. We are at over 70% capacity on our flights. At 70%, we know in terms of statistics that we're turning people away because there's many flights that are fully booked. So it's just in terms of capacity, we fill what we can, and they will not go there unless they absolutely have to, or they have a family of 4 and it's $1,000 each out of Santa Barbara. Very rare occasion.
Okay, thank you.
That kind of leads me to my question. I was noticing the statistic, 22% international flights. And I am in LA quite a bit, so I see the Santa Barbara bus on the freeway going to or from. When we access the website, is that an automatic link if there is a flight that's not offered from Santa Barbara internationally? Is the bus part of that trip plan to get people to LAX? Are we featuring that as a way to...
No,
It's
we
not.
consider Santa Barbara Airbus our competition.
Yeah.
We don't. I admire the business, but we don't want passengers going down to LA. We want them to fly out of our airport, so we're not going to advertise a business that takes it down, even though he does a great job.
But if there's a flight that we don't offer,
We still would not.
no link.
No.
Let the report show that Commissioner Colbert has arrived.
Slipped in.
It's all right, I answered for you.
Thank you. Count on you. It's my only vote.
Mr. Chair, I would like to recognize Terry and Lynn and Tim. They do a yeoman's women's job with marketing and our aviation education program. They make a lot of impact in the community, and they do a great professional job and represent us well. Okay. Our next administrative item is our fiscal year 2012 operating budget, and Assistant Director Johns will be making the presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, she can't see anything.
Oh.
Stand by. while Mabel's getting the presentation up, just an overall statement once again about the airport department. As you know, we are an enterprise fund of the City of Santa Barbara. And as an enterprise fund, our revenues are derived on the airport. We do not receive sales tax or property tax. We generate revenue from our own sources as an overview. This year's budget was pretty exciting, actually, because we are planning to occupy the new building sometime in June. I wish it was earlier, but at least in June. And by doing so, there are a lot of new pieces of equipment and opportunities for expenses that we have not had in the past. So this year's budget is really, what shall I say, focused, and there's some risk in this budget. So that was our goal, was to balance the budget so that we could incorporate what we think the expenses are going to be for the new terminal. And we want to complete the balance of this project within this next fiscal year, which is 2012, and then transition everything to the new airport terminal campus, and at the same time take care of everything else on the airport. And then, unfortunately, we have to begin paying our mortgage, our debt service. The revenue projections are still, our economy is still unstable, and with the events in Japan, I think it continues to be shaky. No pun intended there. Adjustments in airline industry capacity, as Terry just mentioned. We fly full, so many flights out of this airport that we really do and need additional flights, and we are really seeking to obtain those. At the same time, we need to maintain our cash flow projections so that we can maintain our bond debt service levels. And as I mentioned earlier, just making sure that we provide the service to all of our tenants, the commercial industrial tenants as well as the airline terminal tenants, and still make some additional capital improvements on the airport. The performance objectives for 2012, once again, generally focus on the new terminal administration. Karen is doing a great deal with our arts program, focusing on the regional art display in the new building as well as the historical display in the old terminal. At least I think it's going to be in the old terminal. That's where history should be. Business and property, we have one more major concession to do a solicitation, and that's for our public parking program. We have scheduled it for fiscal year 2012, assuming we want them to go in once all the parking improvements are completed. So we didn't want to do that mid-construction season. Marketing, you'll hear more about this in the next month or so with our air service development program that's going to be implemented by the marketing program. Facility maintenance, once again, all areas of maintenance, getting familiar with the new terminal building and all of the equipment and the maintenance routines and cleaning standards. Air operations, Tracy really wants to replace those 48-day light bulbs with LED lights so that we can save some money. Security, conduct a tabletop exercise as required by TSA. That happens on a routine basis. Facilities planning, once again, finishing up the new terminal. But a new item that we've talked about somewhat is the master plan. FAA requires that the airport have a master plan, and that if you have one, you update it at least every 5 to 10 years. Our master plan is pretty much complete. Once the terminal's done, all of the projects that were identified there pretty much are done. So we're starting that process again to do a new master plan, and we'd like to have the plan document and the notice of preparation on the environmental done by next June. That's optimistic, but we're willing to try. Complete design and permitting bidding on the airport sewer project. You'll recall that Goleta Sanitary District put in a new lift station and a gravity flow line. This project connects our third lift station to this one, so that we're all humping in the right direction. Our revenue analysis, of course, as I mentioned, tenant rents and user fees, that's where our dollars come from. We also have reserves above policy, and those reserves are generated so that we can assist us in making capital improvements on the airport. Rate adjustments we've also looked at because we need to stay current with parking fees, and also the airline rates and charges are being negotiated, and those rates are included in the revenues. At mid-year, I wasn't able to provide you with a list of our reserves, but have received these just recently, so you can tell that with the council mandated reserves, economic uncertainty, future year budget, and the capital, the airport is required to have $4.1 million. We're fully funded and have been since council established that in the early 90s. In addition to that, we have reserves above policy, which would be used for capital at just at $1.2 million. We're also proposing a fee change in parking. Several years ago, Airport Commission recommended that the airport administration look at adjusting rates at least every 2 years for parking. And that came about because we had parking and had not done a rate adjustment for 13, 14 years. And then when we did, it was substantial. So they asked us not to have that happen again. The last adjustment we did was in August of 2009. And at this time, we did a parking rate survey of the airports that are similar in size to us, but also are the airports that we had talked about earlier where folks go, like Burbank and Los Angeles and Long Beach, some competition to see what their rates are like. So we surveyed 5 airports consistent over the years. And short-term rates varied between $12 and $33, and long-term rate varied between $8 and $17. So once we had the survey information, then I approached the parking management company and asked the regional director his input on what would he adjust in our parking rates here at the airport, keeping in mind that our long-term rates today are $9 a day, and our parking rate for the short-term lot is $20 a day. And he suggested that the long-term lot at the airline terminal, which is more frequently used by business travelers, should be higher than the overflow lot that's over at the old drive-in facility. So that's their business, and so we accepted their recommendation. And so what we're proposing to do is take the long-term rate in the lot at the terminal and increase it from $9 to $12 a day. By doing that, if all things stay the same as in 2010, we would project an increase in revenue of $53,500 a month. In this year's budget, because we were hoping to be in and have all of the improvements completed by, I was hoping January, I put in 6 months increase in parking. So we would have the rate adjustment be effective January 1st. If we have to slip it to February, we can do that as well, or whatever month, because we really want it to be done for the month in which the whole program is done. So with those changes, with the airline rates and charges, the parking fee adjustment, commercial industrial property is still very healthy. Rebecca does an excellent job keeping our property filled at good lease rates. Non-commercial aviation is up a little because of our landing fee, which we project to generate about $250,000 in next year's budget. The airline terminal, $5.1 million, does include the parking rate adjustment, along with the rent-a-car adjustment, too, that is projected. Commercial aviation at $3.4 million includes landing fees at $250 per 1,000 pounds, which is what they are today, and a new terminal rental rate for the space that the airlines will occupy in the new building. Our interest earnings are modest at 231,000 or 213. I think it's 231. And then we also included that number under other, the TSA reimbursement for our patrol officers at the checkpoint, and a touch of money that we get when we have damage to city property or just unusual revenues that come in. So we're projecting $14.5, almost $14.6 million in revenues. This chart just gives you an example of how they're distributed percentage-wise by source.
Maybe comment on how 15 years ago.
In the old days, commercial industrial properties totaled about 47% of our revenues. The commercial aviation has always been subsidized by other resources on the field, and GA has as well. The aviation side just has been subsidized by the commercial industrial. Now, however, with the new building and with changes that we've done with competitive bidding, rent-a-cars, and parking, and airline rates and charges, the aviation side is picking up again, which is good. Interest in the past, it depends on the cash and the market, obviously. This is a cash flow projection giving you information by source of income for the actual for 2010, our budget for 2013, and then our proposed budget for 2012, and also the proposed budget for 2013. This is, for several years, the city had to do a one-year budget versus their typical two-year budget just because of the economy. This year we're going back to the two-year budget, and of course it will be amended this time next year. Expenditures, salary and benefits, supplies and services includes the contracts that we have with city firefighters and also with Public Works for the engineers, the two engineers at the airport. So that's why that is a little bit inflated. Allocated costs are those expenses or those costs that we pay downtown for services rendered for the airport. Special projects, it primarily includes the shuttle service that we have for the employee and public transportation, along with another special project with that facility planning is doing on our mapping and survey work, completing that project. Capital at 2.4 is not just capital like you would think of capital being buildings. The way the city's budget is capital, and then you have transfers out, that includes the debt service for the terminal, along with additional subsidy for the T-hanger loan that we have with the state. We do have some new equipment in this year's budget just because we need it for the new building. We don't have the equipment right now that we would need when we move in. I have appropriated reserves higher than is required. City requires it to be 0.5% of the operating budget, but I'm concerned that there could be some need for additional cash in different line items. So we put a little bit of extra money in appropriated reserve. This way we can move that money where it's needed should it be necessary. So at this point we're expecting to have an operational budget with capital at $15.2 million.
I think I might mention the additional for the appropriated reserve is because some of the costs for the new terminal, as Hazel said earlier, we've never had those costs before. We've never maintained escalators and jet bridges and that sort of thing. So we're doing our best guess in terms of what the maintenance costs will be. And she's put this cushion in just in case we're off on, some of the line items until we build up a history, and then we'll be able to be more accurate.
Thank you.
Am I interpreting it right? That's your expenditures and the income was less, so we're actually running at a deficit for this year?
We're running, at this point, we're going to use reserves that we have, reserves above policy, to balance the year. That's correct.
Okay.
This chart just gives the a snapshot of the expenditures by category and their percentage for the next year. This is the cash flow on the expenditure side, once again showing 2010 actuals. You'll see revenues at the top, then our expenses, and the budget for 2011 and our proposed budgets for 2012 and 13. If you come down to the transfers, capital transfers, that's for actual capital improvements on the airport. And then if you see the line underneath that, the bond debt and the T-hanger, the $1,151,000 includes our first bond debt payment in June of 2012, along with about $42,000 as a subsidy for the state loan for the T-hangers. We knew when we built the T-hangers we would have about a 7-year period where the airport needed to contribute additional money versus just the revenues generated from the rents. And then we also know that sometimes we have vacant properties until we can do the lottery and fill that. So we may not have to use all of it, but it's there based on our history that about $42,000 is needed. Once again, the appropriated reserves at the bottom, and then our total cost, and you'll see the net under 2012 is a negative $713,775. That will come from our $1.2 million in reserves above policy. And we've done that historically. I mean, that's why the reserve gets built up, so that we can use it for capital improvements. We do not have any proposed changes in staffing. We have 54 full-time employees and will continue to have in the next 2 years.
Can I ask about staffing? Security staff, are we going to try to hire so we're not paying overtime in that department?
We constantly are hiring and have an open solicitation or open recruitment. Thank you, Tracy. So, yes, we are pursuing that as best we can.
Do the people not stay? Is that the problem? How come they don't stay staffed?
Well, we have been fortunate to hire them, and then they go on to the city police department. They move that direction. And generally, I think that's been the consistency. I'll have either Karen or Tracy answer.
We've had some problems in having successful completions of probation as well. Just over a year, about a year ago, we did get the little more than a year ago. We're able to elevate the salaries, and we expect this recruitment to be more successful.
I think since September 11, 2001, when we added 5 airport patrol positions right after that happened in response to TSA security requirements, then we were unable I don't even know if we still are, to fill all those positions with candidates that, like Tracy said, would meet the probationary period. So it's been a little bit challenging, and we hope that with some of the salary changes that we're able to attract a candidate that will stay and pass.
Are salaries industry standard, or do they need to be raised?
Really not.
They're at standard now.
Yeah. Okay.
This chart breaks down airport staffing by program. And once again, you'll notice that maintenance and security, the operations part of the airport, that's where our staffing is located. Business and property, marketing, administration, facility planning, administration, facility planning, and marketing all have about 2.5 positions. Certain ops is, I think, 1.5 positions. This chart gives you an example. As Karen was saying, prior to 2011, the airport had 40 positions. Once 2011 happened, we added 2001, I'm sorry.
9/11.
We added immediately in January, right after that incident, we added staff for patrol. And as the years go by, TSA has different requirements which require us to have additional staff. The bulk of the staff changes has been in security. Our capital projects for this coming year, in the new terminal, the Security Operations Center is to be located in the old terminal building. Once that decision was made and we looked at the space that they have available for them, it was determined that that would be the redundant SOC, but the primary SOC would remain in this building. And in order to accommodate that, we need to do some upgrades and some changes in the physical structure of the building. So that will be going on here. Additionally, with FAA, this is a new fund that we're setting up, or a new line item for FAA grant design and permitting. 2 years ago, FAA changed the method in which they issue grants. In order for a project to be eligible, you have to have completed the environmental portion of that project. In order in Santa Barbara to do environmental, that you usually need 25 to 30% plans and specs done. FAA will reimburse you, but you have to pre-fund it. And the second catch on that is that the projects have to be based on bids. So not only do we have to design it and permit it before we are eligible to apply for the grant, but in order to get the grant, you have to also go out and bid that project. So we're setting up a fund of $500,000 to allow us to begin that process for design and permitting of some projects on the airfield. And this will be our first time of doing that. And then, of course, we have maintenance of airport assets. This is a little bit diminished because we're kind of tight, but building maintenance would include roofs, air conditioning or HVAC systems, painting of buildings, window replacement, door replacements. Street resurfacing is outside the AOA, and AOA pavement is inside the fence. Our debt service transfers, as I said, the first one is in June 2012, and then the T-Hanger loan through the state is in May of 2012, and these dollars will go for those services. So tonight we're asking Airport Commission to approve the recommended budget for City Council. And I have a caveat. When we met with the Budget Subcommittee, at that point I was a little bit more optimistic on two numbers. One was for the rent-a-car bids. We had that out to bid, and I had made a projection based on 10% of gross receipts. Mm-hmm. The actual minimum annual guarantees, which you'll see in the next report, came in about $100,000 less. I think we're going to meet or exceed the minimum, so I'm leaving that dollar amount alone of about $1.5 million. The airline, however, the airline building rental for the commercials, the amount that I had in the budget initially was $1.9 million for their payment. They're very good at cutting space, so they have shrunk their needs. And I have reduced that to a little over $1.7 million. 1.7 million, right. So that difference increased the amount that we're taking from reserves, just so you know. Okay. I'm happy to answer questions.
One quick question, and I'm sorry, I wasn't quite clear. The long-term parking adjacent to the terminal is $12 a day, and then the remote lot is $9 a day?
That's correct.
Thank you. So
and
there's
short-term stays the same as well.
So it behooves the public to park in the reserve lot, and location is a plus. When you changed the revenue on that, were you encompassing the fact that more would go to the reserve lot as well? Okay.
No, I did not. The analysis that the parking management company provided, Mr. Patel really feels that the majority of the customers in that lot at the terminal are business travelers. Business travelers generally don't park in remote parking lots. Families do, and individuals do, and groups do. But he felt that lot is because they know the customers. I mean, they're there at the exit. They know who they are. So he really feels that that raise will not be objected to by the routine parkers that go there.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a question for Hazel. Thank you for the presentation. One thing that I do want to underscore from our meeting was the critical nature of that parking revenue increase to make this budget happen.
Sure.
And with these two new revisions, downward revisions, projections, just really emphasizes how important that is, and the council understands that as well. That being said, Hazel, kind of crystal balling this into 2013, the project stabilized, everybody's happy and paying, and what do you foresee as being the upside that's going to take us out of using reserves to operate the facility?
Quite
I mean,
frankly,
we have one-time expenses, I know, but
I think what's going to help us is increase in passenger traffic.
okay.
Because as you know, as the passengers go up, all of the services go up. Rent-a-car use goes up, concessions
effects,
go
yeah.
up, parking goes up.
Right.
That's really a key for us. Long range, not in 2013, but long range, eventual development of Parcel 22 will be very beneficial to the airport if we can exceed the amount that we're generating at this time.
Okay.
And your plan B if passenger counts didn't go up?
Trim. We'd have to trim the budget and look at other options, and it could very well be that we would look at firefighting services. We'd have to look at maintenance. We don't have that much in maintenance. But we could trim airport staff, we could trim back some of our expenses, but we have a contractual obligation to our tenants to take care of the buildings.
Sure.
So there's a limit to how much you can cut that staff.
It just goes to show how good a job you guys do, because the reserve is a rainy day fund, and you can say we're in a rainy day period right now. So there's no shame in having to dip into that to get through the period that we're in. And I'm with you. I think next year will be better.
Good. Thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Second. All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? We approve. The director's report.
We have one more. The rental
I'm so
car
sorry.
consent-
Yes, we do.
And I'll make this brief because you all have been through requests for proposals on rent-a-cars more than once. The main difference, well, first of all, we all know that rent-a-car activity is essential for the airport. But in the last 10 years, between bankruptcies, mergers, and acquisitions, the rental car companies are no longer independent brands. They have their name, but they all commingle their equipment, their vehicles, their staff. Even their accounting systems sometimes are the same. They just have a different name as they write the check. So this year, when we did the request for proposals, after many long hours of discussion, we decided, I'm looking at Rebecca because she and I have had many discussions about how to approach this. We decided that we were going to ask for a proposal. And that proposal could be any brand you want. And it had to have one single minimum annual guarantee. So we met with we had the pre-proposal meeting, and Enterprise, as an example, Enterprise Holdings, I think is their name. They have Enterprise Car Rental. They have National Car Rental. They have Alamo. Hertz has Hertz and Advantage. Avis and Budget are owned by the same company. And then Thrifty Dollar is a separate company. So all brands were represented at the pre-proposal meeting. We explained that they could submit a proposal and they could say that they're going to have 2 brands or 3 brands or 1 brand, and that's fine for the limited space that we have with the 4 counters in the new building. And that they have to, their minimum annual guarantee would be by proposal, but if they had more than 1 brand in that proposal, then we did want separate reporting for them, even though they'd just pay 1 fee. I mean, but that's what we wanted. So the proposals went out, they asked questions, we answered the questions, and then we had the bids come in on March 10th, I think it was. And as you can see in your report, Avis Budget Rent-A-Car have a minimum annual guarantee of $465,000. Enterprise, which includes Enterprise Rental Car and National Car Rental, is $464,16. The Hertz Corporation, which includes Hertz Advantage, is $425,000. And then we have a new standalone, which would be Enterprise Rent-A-Car, but doing business as Alamo Rent-A-Car. Alamo will have their own counter, and they came in at $101,004. And Thrifty Car Rental submitted a bid of $65,000, which was our minimum bid. So based on the bids that were received, we're recommending the top 4 for concession agreements. These agreements will be effective for occupancy when the new building's done, but they need to get in to do their tenant improvements prior to that time. So there'll be like a license period that they'll be in the terminal making back wall improvements and office space and cabling before that. So with that, I'd recommend or request that Airport Commission approve the agreements with the rent-a-car companies.
Are the tenant improvements on the company themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
We provide the office, the counter, the doorways. We do all of that, but they have to do their back wall and their communication cabling.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. In addition, I want to point out, too, that they will also pay $30 per month for the ready return parking spots, and we have about 150 of those. They'll continue to pay a ground rental at the QTA. It's a little more than 13 cents a square foot since we've had a CPI adjustment on it. And I think that's all. Oh, and the operation and maintenance, is that what you're saying? Oh, and CFCs.
Say what that
I'm sorry.
is. Say what it is.
Oh, CFC, customer facility charge. That is a fee of $10 per rental contract. Those dollars are generated and they repay the debt for the QTA facility improvements that we made, which is a loan with the city at 7% interest.
Can I ask also that is there a term attached to this that say Enterprise decides that it doesn't have enough traffic and it wants to eliminate Alamo and just keep the 1 brand? Are they locked in at this rate for a period of time?
5 years.
5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hazel, I know you covered this, but just kind of stepping back here, when you looked at these numbers coming in at the minimums, was this more or less in line with your projection?
It was their bids were about $200,000 less than what they did in 2006. So they're recouping some of that loss because those were firm for 5 years
Sure.
that they had to pay.
Yeah.
But when I looked without all of these brands, just like 5 of the brands, not 7 brands, I figured about $1.5 million and some change.
Yeah,
So
you're
I
pretty
think
close.
we're going to make it. I think they bid low to
Right.
recoup some of their, to hedge their bet, so to speak. But it's still a healthy return for us.
We don't have a choice, whether.
That's why, that's true. Yes, it's either the minimum annual guarantee or 10%.
Or 10%.
whichever
No, I
is
understand
right.
that. I understand.
Right.
Yeah. We'll pray for the 10%.
Are there any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve?
Move that we approve.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The Airport Commission approves the rental car concession agreements.
Thank you.
And now, what we've been waiting for with bated breath, the director's report.
Okay. As usual, I'll report on selected items in the report, and if you have any questions or comments on any of the other items, please feel free to ask. Our passenger count for February was down 0.9% compared to February of last year. However, for January and February of 2011 compared to the same period last year, we're up 1.3%. So
And all this nasty weather.
that's true. There was nasty weather. So we'll see how we do in March. But I have noticed, I've told you before, we kind of watch what Orange County's passenger count is, and they're finally in the positive. So maybe this is the first little hint that maybe the economy is gaining some life again. Master plan RFQ, we received 7 proposals, and the selection committee is creating a short list for interviews with the consultants, the shortlisted consultants, on March 23rd. So we should be kind of getting rolling with this, and then the second part is to actually receive the grant money that'll pay for the consultant services. Airline terminal project, it's coming along really well. The drywall is pretty much done on the first floor. They're working on the second floor. Some of the rooms and beams have been painted. So I would like to suggest that maybe at your meeting in April that we schedule a tour, and again start early. And I promise.
No rain?
Well, if it rains, I don't care if it's pouring. We're going to do it. Just wear long, big hip waders.
Is that because you will not be present?
That's right. I will be on vacation, but our dynamic duo here will do a great job at the tour. And I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised at how much progress has been made since the last time you were there. Let's see, and we already talked about the rental car. The gift shop and the restaurant have started working on their improvements in the terminal. So probably by the time you take a tour, there'll be a little bit more to see than there is at the moment. The arts program is coming along very well. The wrought iron railing, kelp embellishments that'll be attached to the railings is done, and the railings have been delivered to the airport now and will get painted and then at the appropriate time installed. So that part is completed. The medallion is coming along very well, but she won't start installing that till the end. The stenciling, she's just now able to measure the beams, and she again, the stenciling will be toward the very end before we open. And today we heard an interview for the Pierre Clison's commissioned art, which is the Marine Tribute. And we invited the artists to come back with 2 to 3 concepts for the committee to consider and see if we move on to the next step. So that's coming along very well. Our grand opening events, we have set some dates, finally. Kind of wrung them out of the engineers. They were so reluctant. The accessible event will be Wednesday, June 15th. The employee celebration, airline terminal employee celebration, will be Thursday, June 16th. The gala, which is the evening event and fundraiser for our terminal arts program, will be Friday, June 17th. And then Sunday, June 19th, is a public open house, which is free to the public. So things are coming along quite well, and probably in maybe next month's meeting, or maybe in May, we'll be able to actually show you some things that, tangibles that kind of give you a flavor for the different events. In terms of, let's see, I guess the roof is almost complete, except for there's little sections of the tile that are haven't been installed yet because the walls adjacent need to be plastered. And I think that's it for that.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question as a follow-up to the dates. The building, the terminal goes live operationally when?
Right now, the date is June 29th.
June 29th, okay. Thank you.
And I might mention also, the whole project, not just the new building, is 62% complete. We've used about 78% of the change order allowance. About half of that has been changes that were requested by the airlines and the TSA. Unfortunately, the TSA has made several changes that has kind of increased the change order use due to changes in how they want to configure the space. And basically, this is coming from Washington. It isn't that the local people want decorative items. They are related to TSA requirements.
Is there grant money available for those things?
No, not the change orders.
The TSA either.
No.
Since it's
But I mean, for the
derived from
change
TSA.
orders, there's not TSA money available for that kind of thing, no. We might, for equipment and that kind of thing, we can work through the TSA to get possible grant funding for that kind of item, but not building changes, unfortunately.
Just as Mr. Chair, as a follow-up, then the 22% left in contingency, right, from your original projections, what's the outlook of? Is that gonna be enough?
We'll have to go back to council and get additional
Funding.
change order authority.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see that, because we still have we still have the existing, or the new building to finish, and then we have that 1942 building.
Yeah, it's just pull up right next to it, right?
And when you're dealing with old buildings.
Yeah, I do.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Just briefly, on April 12th, Karen's going to be recognized by City Council for her 35 years of service with the city. And I'd like to invite any of the airport commissioners who are available to come on down to council on April 12th at 2 o'clock when she gets recognized.
Wow. How about that?
Were you agendized for that comment?
She had a speaker slip for that.
Ran it past you.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Thank you.
And then Mr. Gilbert had it.
Mr. Gilbert?
Is there any council actions this next period? Anything coming up?
Coming up.
Like a presentation on, I noticed the memo or the email, Mr. White's or Councilmember White's request on the thing. Is there any follow-up on that during this next period?
No, when I sent him kind of the update, or all of you in council, the update, and then I'm going to schedule a tour for them as well. And I'm not going to do a presentation at council.
Okay. The other issue I'm wondering about is that noticed the ordinance subcommittee met. I had thought there might be some sort of presentation on what was said and done, and whatever it is was said and done, is that going to be brought to the council next period or sometime to review and approve?
Yes, and I can let the committee members report on the meeting. We did go over the proposed ordinance changes, and the committee members made some recommendations which were working on right now, and we will make the changes or not make them depending on what our research says. Get back with the committee, and then we'll come to Airport Commission in May. That's what I said, right? And go through the presentation with full commission and take any comments or recommendations that you have as well.
I had thought the subcommittee would have given a report just like the rest of us have to do.
Excuse me, Commissioner Gilbert, since there was not a finalization and it wasn't prepared for the full committee, that's why it was delayed.
Even if there's not a finalization, it's a report that there wasn't a finalization.
So be it.
It's all right. I just, you caught me. It came up. It's agendized or noted. Should have been some kind of a little quickie on it, at least to say that you hadn't final, as much as to say what it was about. But you got that from our thing instead of the committee. Okay.
Well, that was probably an oversight on my part. I should have put a commission reports and had that as an item. But the committee meeting was noticed and had an agenda and all that kind of stuff. It was an oversight not to put on here. So.
Yeah, basically, we reviewed the standing chapter 18 or title, I think it's 18, of the city ordinances, kind of top to bottom, and there was
Quite line by
vigorous
line.
discussion
Yes.
on
Yes.
on the revisions and some of the things that hadn't been
At times,
revised.
word by word.
So,
And with due consideration, we are, with full responsibility, trying to make sure that it is completely correct and before submittal. Any other comments, queries, quandaries, quibbles, or qualms? Is there a...
Before adjournment, I was going to ask if we could get a update on, I think, January's meeting when there were new assignments put out and subcommittee assignments, and I don't have an updated version of that.
Okay.
Just email.
Yeah. Mabel will get a copy of that, too. I don't think substantial changes were made, but you need an updated list.
Yeah, I penciled in the changes, but
Oh.
there was the change of Grant House is not here anymore, so things like that, I'd like to
Right.
get a new one.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
We are adjourned.